Well, we're not shelling corn today. I did haul in the 2 loads that I had on trucks from yesterday, and the test weight on the backfield came up dang near 2.5 pounds. So it was hovering around 50 in this front field, and back there it's about 52 and a half, so that's nice. So bump the corn up an entire grade, which is easier on the wallet. But anyhow, it rained a lot last night, and it's rained all day. It's actually spitting rain right now, and then it's supposed to start up again here in a couple hours, and it's supposed to rain a big chunk of tonight, and then we still have chances of rain tomorrow. So, but Saturday's supposed to be decent, and then as of right now they got snow in the forecast for Sunday. With what I got back here left to run, if I can get 2 semis Saturday, maybe, weather depending, hopefully we can get done back here Saturday, and it'll just be done and over with. But anyhow, there's water standing everywhere. In this field, it's big. It doesn't have like any what I'd call like natural wet spots, like springs or low ground that holds water or any. Well, it's got some low ground that holds water, but it's not holding water because this particular ground is wet. All this right down through here, and I'll bet if we laid something out, yeah, you can see it. This water's actually flowing. If I can get you something, it's too heavy. Yeah, I can't get anything, but this water's flowing. Rainwater comes down from that, or runoff comes down out of that swale and runs down through here. That swale right there all runs down through there, and then everything from the house, the barn lot, all that runs down that swale right there, and all comes down to the center of this field, comes down, wraps around the front of that hill right there, and goes off into the woods. So like, this particular field isn't wet because it's just wet soil. It's wet because it catches the runoff, because it's the catch basin for all the surrounding high ground, and everything, even the hay field, runs down to here. So this is a big fish bowl, which is the reason this is wet. And this probably wouldn't be that hard to fix, and the easiest thing to do if you could manage it. And unfortunately that ground's a little too rolly to make it practical, but an open ditch to catch the water and divert it around, but I don't think it would work out. And the ground's so heavy that if you ran a tile to try to catch it, it would just run over top of the ground. It wouldn't try to get down to the tile. And I don't even know if putting a grid in down here and tiling it out to the woods would help, because it just wants to run along top of the ground anyhow, so it's not gonna. I mean, it would obviously help in a year like this, because it wouldn't let the ground stay saturated, but and then the backfield could very easily be fixed by tile, which when we get up here I can kind of show you. Walking. Like, it's running down, there's just so much water. I couldn't imagine what this field looked like if I didn't have the tracks on. I got a fair bit knocked off this last night. I didn't see it, and I wasn't able to see it in the light to see how much I did. I lost count of how many roundy rounds I made. But anyway, so this backfield, from the front of the waterway, or front, I guess it'd be to the south of the waterway this way, because that's north, that's south. Waterway south is all, it's got some clay in it, but it's got a pretty heavy sand content, so it's actually really well drained. And I mean, it's actually some pretty nice soil. I wish the whole farm was like that and we wouldn't be out here fighting this, but anyway. And then from the waterway back, it transitions to clay, and at the end of that waterway, and I guess I almost need to go back there so that you can see. Let me get because I'm gonna pop that gathering chain back on and put fuel in the combine, and probably mess with that shift cable a little bit and see if I can get it to go into second and stay there, because having second gear on these hills would be nice. But anyhow, let me get this thing warming up, and while it's warming up, we'll walk back there and we can show you what this field's ism is. All right, so this field, for reference, you get to the other side of the field and there's a massive drop off, and there's a huge swamp in between here and the highway, which is just the other side of the next piece of property. So there is actually a spring that originates somewhere back there on the neighbor's property and makes this entire back corner. Actually, I'm pretty sure it originates somewhere around where those pine trees are, right there. And the worst of it just so happens to be in this first pass here that I took in the first set of long rows. And if you actually look in the corn stalks, you can see there's a dip right here. That's the worst of it. I've been stuck here fitting ground before. And for the most part, it's not very wide, because I have, in a pinch, been able to take the finisher and work down one side of it with the wing halfway on, and then come back down the other side and work the other side of it. Because once you get it broke open, it dries out lickety-split. You just got to get it broke open. But there's a spring that originates down there somewhere, and it comes down and ends up in here, and then makes its way on down into the woods. But that spring keeps this entire corner pretty much soaking wet most of the time. And as you can see, a lot of this ground back here likes to hold water, and there's a reason that I farm around this spot, because I'm not gonna screw with it. The first year I farmed it, I left this here, and my uncle saw it, and he's like, well, you really need to wait or go out there and disc it and wait a couple days, and it'll dry out and you can plant through it. And I'm like, just because you can plant through it doesn't mean it's going to be harvestable. So there's a reason that the waterway's here. So, but yeah, this whole area back here, if you dug down a shovel, if you took one spade's depth down anywhere in here, you'll hit water anywhere right now. And then it stops. You can tell it's low right here, and then right there it comes up about 10-12 inches, and it's all decent once you get past. I probably got about 2 more rounds to get all the way out of this wet hole, and then you're up on high ground and it's fine. And then over here it comes into right in here somewhere and kind of cuts off at an angle, and then it gets dry. Well, you can see the hill right there kind of goes across. So this would all be fairly easy to fix with tile. The problem is the tile system you're looking at putting in to fix both these fields is probably somewhere between $65,000 and $70,000. Because I know that the one that I'm looking at putting in at Grandma and Grandpa's is just shy of 10,000, and I'm only draining about 4.5 acres off of that, which you can thank, I don't know who you can thank for that, because when I put the one in behind Mom and Dad's, what was that, 6-ish years ago, 6 years, somewhere in there, 6-7 years ago ish, it was like $1.80 something a foot, and I put in that system, it was like 3,500 bucks. So, and the one I'm putting in at the other field isn't a whole lot bigger. I think it's only about another 800-900 feet of tile, and the price has more than doubled. But all because the price of the tile has gone through the roof because of the plastic. So anyhow, run this thing up front by the pickup, and we'll do what we need to do to it, and that'll be it for the day. All right, gotta pop this cover off. I'm using some of my Christmas presents. Shelly's mom got me a set of gear wrenches, metric and SAE, and she got me a set of, what do they call them, max access ratchets. The ones that are, the ratchets look like a ratchet wrench, and the socket's got a hole through it, and they're all shallow well sockets, and you just run whatever they call those things. And then Dad got me a new tool bag with a complement of cheap horrible freight tools, so that I had something to keep in the equipment to work on stuff in the field without having to worry about losing my good tools, because I have done that before, and there's nothing worse than losing good tools when you're working on stuff outside the shop. And I have done that before. I've lost some good sockets. I've lost some good punches. Most of which actually going to junkyards. You're working on a piece of equipment for an hour trying to get that one stubborn part off you want, and you get tools strung everywhere, and even after you count them, putting them back in the bag, you still manage to miss that one. Whereas if you got some cheap junk Harbor Freight tools and you lose one, no big deal. You go to Harbor Freight, you spend 99 cents, you get another one. And we did manage to find a place in Illinois that can make us, or make me, new gathering chains for this that are at a much nicer price point than going through Agco. They're 152 a chain, and that's physically having, like, the guy didn't have them on the shelf, he called his supplier, and that's physically having them made brand new, which I didn't think was too bad. But the other option is, because basically what makes these things special is they use a number 550 chain link, whereas it appears that everybody else, up even into today, with the exception of some different, with some, like Gearinghoff uses their own special chain and a couple other ones, but like the chains for the deer heads use a number 555 chain link, which is the same pitch. The pin to pin center is identical, but the links are like, these are probably an inch or so tall, and the deer links are like a 1/8 of an inch or so narrower. But the lugs are basically the same length, but they're shaped different. They're round, they're not square. So the other option is, if you wanted to convert this to something that you don't ever have any issues finding chain for, because the deer chain is even, they're still 8 lugs. They're the same link count, whole 9 yards. They're a shorter chain. Is you take these sprockets, you mill them down to the right thickness for that 555 chain, and you just change your end idlers to the narrower, newer style, because the tooth count on the idlers, everything is identical. It's just the chain's different, the chain's shorter. And you just convert it to John Deere chain. Actually, they come up as John Deere and Case IH both, so apparently Deere and IH shared the same chain on a certain number of heads. But anyway, and they're never going to stop making chain for John Deere 600 series corn heads, at least no time anywhere in the near future. And then you just have an industry standard off-the-shelf chain that you don't have to worry about supply issues anymore. So there's options. It's just a matter of deciding which way overall is going to be cheaper. Alright. And there. Okay, good news. I got second gear back. It was just a matter of getting the cable adjusted. You still got to play with third a little bit, but you've always had to play with third a little bit, so that's just always. But second, it falls in and stays in. The cable needs like another 1/2 inch of travel to play with. I never understood on these push-pull cables why they have built-in travel stops, especially if you've got something on both ends that limits the travel. Like, if the cable itself has to limit the travel, I could understand it, but like in a shift situation where you need to basically have an infinite amount of adjustment because no true transmissions are going to be exactly the same, it would have been a heck of a lot nicer to not have a built-in stop. Because on these cables, and I'm sorry I didn't get any video of it, it's one of them deals where I started working on it, and next thing I pulled up a little bit of gravel there, huh? I wonder where that ended up. I started working on it, and next thing I knew I had it fixed, and it was a lot of up, down, and making little minute adjustments. And anyway, ironically, the second third shift cable is the one that's got pieces of jacket missing on it, but you unhook it from both ends and you can move it by hand, so it's not the cable. But in the sleeve right here, there is it's built in that it can only travel basically the distance of that sleeve, and it needs to be just a shade longer because it needs to be able to push just a little bit more for third, and it needs to be able to pull just a little bit more for second. And I played with it, and if you get it to go into one reliably, you gotta fiddle with it to get it to go into the other. You can't get it to reliably go into both, which also makes me wonder if that cable isn't, because that cable's been replaced, because it's silver, and this first gear shift cable still got red paint on it, so the third gear cable has been replaced. But it makes me wonder if it wasn't replaced with the right cable, because the first gear shift cable has about yay much more stud sticking through the bracket. So, but I'm reluctant to try to order another shift cable for it, for fear that I'm going to get the exact same one back. So I might, since I don't use first anyhow, I've never had this thing in first gear. I don't even know if it goes in first gear. The cable might be froze. But I might pull that first gear shift cable off and take it to a place that specializes in making cables and have them make me one that matches that first gear cable, with the longer nubbin there, and see if I get more travel out of it and if that takes care of my shift issue. So, but it works the way it is for now. So I just got to put some fuel in it, and God, is it muddy. I also noticed while I was working on it that my bottom little tab that holds this mirror on is cracked. So I'm going to pop that off real quick and we'll take it home and weld it up. I noticed a few things that I know for certain the track vibration has broke, but it's all been stuff that was broke in the rollover, and I had welded back together and it re-broke the welds. The first thing was those two struts inside the rotary screen. This broke, but that was broken in the rollover, and I fixed it and it re-broke right at the weld. I probably should have plated that when I welded it back together anyhow. That mirror bracket, really that's it actually. It's all just sheet metal shit. But it was all stuff that was broke when it rolled over, and it just re-broke the welds, so there was already a built-in weak point. But anyhow, well, before I forget, I gotta bend my cotter pin that holds that shift cable in, and then I gotta put some fuel in it, and we'll do that bracket real quick and we'll be done. Cranky. One of these days I'll break down and buy an electric pump for this thing, but honestly the crank pump really ain't all that bad, and this was free. And honestly, this fall is probably the most I've ever used this transfer tank. Of course, I'd probably use it more often if it had an electric pump on it, but you'll have that. Okay, so here's my mirror bracket, and judging by the fact that crack is rust from here up to about here, that had been broke for a good long while, and it was just this little nubbin right here hanging on, and apparently it just got finished off, which probably was exacerbated by the fact that on the top bracket, one of the studs has been broke off for a good long while, so there's only one bolt up top holding it and the two down on bottom. So, and naturally when they put the cab together, they welded studs in from the back side of the cab pillar and then welded a piece of channel down the inside of it, I'm guessing, to run wires and stuff through, so you can't access the back of those holes to weld a new stud in. So we're gonna have to figure something out up there. But anyhow, that's project for a different day. We just got to weld this guy back together for now so that mirror doesn't fall off and go under the track. Alright, I got my little bracket fixed. Put this on it, we'll be good. If I can make it over here without dying. Where can I sit you? There, you can see. Oh, in case you can't hear it, it's raining again, by the way, too. Because, you know, why wouldn't it? We're starting to get a little dry. I'm gonna bring a flat washer for that, and I forgot, so when I come back over to start shelling again, I'll have to remember to bring one with me. I think that'll help it live. There we go. Alrighty. And with that, take it back out and park it on the high ground, and we'll be good. One thing's for damn sure, the ground's gonna have to freeze or at least get a crust on it before we can keep chopping stalks, or it's gonna be a mess. I got a couple fields that I should probably get over without it, but some of them not so much. And while we're here and I'm thinking about it, as you can see, my uncle's barn fell down. This happened a month or so ago. Another victim due to poor maintenance, but I wanted to look real quick. This is really gonna piss off all the safety Steves out there. There was, and I see it, it's right there, there was a fanning mill right there. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't crushed, because if nobody wants it, I'd like to get that thing drug out of there and save it. I don't know, I'm assuming most of it's there. Well, I know it's all there, I don't know what screens are in it, but it'd be nice if that thing had a set of wheat screens for it, because for the couple thousand pounds of wheat seed that I need every year, if I had that little fanning mill, I would seriously consider cleaning my own, because I mean, you wouldn't have a gravity table or nothing to run across, but they clean seed with those things for years and never had any issues. So if I had one of those and it had a set of wheat screens for it, I would seriously consider cleaning my own wheat seed. At least at like every other year or something, because I've found that getting new seed stock every couple years does greatly increase your yield. The old hay carriage track still hanging in there. The trolleys down on the far are down sticking out the end of the barn. It just doesn't have the fork on it anymore. Oop, poor old barn. What can you do? I have to tell my cousin I want to try to get that fanning mill out of there. It'd be a little bit of a chore, but I think it could be done if you get this shit out of the, or take a, I mean, that beam right there is probably worth something to somebody, but get this out of here and get that roof flipped over on itself, and then throw a chain around it and drag it here to the edge of the barn, and then you can just pick it off there and set it on a trailer. But one problem at a time. We got to get through harvest first. So anyhow, that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.